The morning started like any other at Luna Command. Admiral Torres sat in his office, reviewing training reports while sipping his coffee. Outside the reinforced windows, Earth hung like a blue marble against the black of space. The routine was peaceful, almost boring. That changed when Lieutenant Davis burst through his door. "Admiral, we have incoming transmission from an unknown source. It's big, sir, really big." Torres set down his coffee and followed Davis to the communications center. The main screen flickered to life, showing something that made everyone in. The room stopped talking. A massive alien ship hung in space just beyond the moon's orbit. It was sleek and dark with strange symbols glowing along its hull. The ship was easily 10 times larger than anything humans had ever built. "This is Warlord Keth of the Drakmori Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council," a voice boomed through the speakers. The translation software worked perfectly, but the voice carried an unmistakable tone of authority and contempt. "We address the primitive species known as humans," Torres raised an eyebrow. He had been expecting this call for over a decade. "You have spread across this sector of space like a disease," Keth continued. "Your violent nature and chaotic expansion threaten the peace and order we have maintained for thousands of years. The Council has decided that your species must be contained." On the screen, Keth appeared. He was tall and imposing with dark blue skin and 4 arms. His eyes glowed with an inner light, and when he spoke, his teeth looked sharp enough to cut. Metal, behind him stood representatives of other alien species, all looking equally confident and superior. "These are your terms," Keth said, holding up a device that projected text in the air. "You will abandon all colonies beyond your home system. You will surrender your military vessels to Council forces. You will submit to Council oversight of all future activities. You have 72 hours to comply." The alien warlord leaned closer to the camera. "If you refuse, we will demonstrate why 12 advanced species bow to our authority. Your primitive weapons and small fleet cannot stand against the combined might of the Galactic Council. We have conquered 47 species. You will be the 48th. The transmission ended, leaving the communications center in silence. Torres looked around at his staff. Some looked worried, others angry, a few seemed excited. None looked surprised. "Well," Torres said calmly, "I guess it's time to make some calls." Within an hour, representatives from the alien ship arrived at Luna Command. They came in a smaller shuttle, expecting to find humans trembling in fear. Instead, they found Admiral Torres waiting in the docking bay with a small honor guard. The humans looked relaxed, almost casual. Keth stepped out of the shuttle, his 4 arms spread wide in what might have been a greeting or a threat. His escorts were equally impressive, representing species that had terrorized whole sectors of space. They expected the humans to bow, or at least step back in fear. Torres walked forward and extended his hand. "Welcome to Luna Command." "I'm Admiral." "Torres, would you like some coffee while we talk?" The aliens exchanged glances. This was not the reaction they expected. Keth ignored the offered hand and towered over the human admiral. "You received our message? What is your answer?" "Oh, we heard you," Torres replied, still smiling. "Very impressive speech. But I think there might be some things you don't understand about humans. Why don't we walk and talk?" Torres led them through Luna Command like he was giving a tour to visiting dignitaries. The aliens saw human personnel going about their daily duties. Technicians worked on equipment. Officers studied reports. Everyone looked calm and focused. No one seemed worried about the ultimatum. "Your people don't appear concerned," noted one of Keth's advisors, a thin creature with too many eyes. "Perhaps they don't understand the situation." "Oh, they understand." "Perfectly," Torres said. "We'd been preparing for this conversation for quite some time." They passed through the command center, where dozens of humans monitored screens showing ship movements throughout the solar system. The displays showed what looked like routine training exercises. Cargo ships moved between stations. Military vessels conducted standard patrols. Everything appeared normal. "You see," Torres continued, "we've been watching you watch us. Your spy networks aren't as secret as you think. We've known about the Council's plans for years. Keth stopped walking. Impossible. Our intelligence is perfect. We know everything about your capabilities. Torres turned to face the alien warlord. For the first time, his smile faded. Do you? You know we have 2,000 ships in this system? You know our weapon specifications. You know our troop numbers. But do you really know what humans are capable of? We know you are primitives who discovered space travel through luck, Keth snarled. We know you fight amongst yourselves constantly. We know you have no understanding of true warfare. That's interesting, Torres said. Because we know something about you too. We know that you've never fought a species that was ready for you. Every conquest you've made was against people who panicked when you showed up. You're used to fear working in your favor. The group had arrived at Torres' office. The Admiral poured himself another cup of coffee and offered some to his guests. They declined. Through the windows, they could see Earth and the small fleet of human ships conducting their exercises. Here's what's going to happen, Torres said, settling into his chair. You're going to go back to your ship and think very carefully about whether you really want to start this war, because once it begins, you won't be able to stop it on your terms. Keth's eyes blazed brighter. You threaten us with your tiny fleet? I'm not threatening anyone, Torres replied calmly. I'm just suggesting that you've made some assumptions about humanity that might not be accurate. You see, while you were building your empire through fear and intimidation, we were doing something different. We were preparing. The alien delegation left Luna Command confused and angry. They had expected begging or defiance, not calm confidence. As their shuttle departed, Keth stared back at the human station. Wondering what he had missed, Torres watched them go, then activated his private communication system. This is Torres. Initiate Protocol 7. All units, this is not a drill. The waiting is over. Across human space, the message spread like wildfire. The war everyone had been preparing for was finally about to begin. The 72 hours passed quickly. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council assembled the largest fleet in recorded history. 50,000 warships gathered at the edge of human space, their hulls gleaming under the light of distant stars. Representatives from 12 species brought their finest vessels, their most experienced crews, and their deadliest weapons. Warlord Keth stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Iron Dominion, watching the final ships take their positions. The fleet stretched for millions of kilometers in every direction. It was a sight that had broken the will of entire civilizations before the first shot was fired. Sensors show only 2,000 human vessels, reported his tactical officer. They're gathered around their homeworld, just as our intelligence predicted. Keth nodded with satisfaction. The humans had made exactly the mistake he expected. They were trying to defend their birth world instead of spreading their forces to protect their colonies. It was a classic primitive response, driven by emotion rather than strategy. Begin the advance, he ordered. We'll crush their fleet, then deal with their colonies at our leisure. Meanwhile, in a hidden command bunker deep beneath the Swiss Alps, General Yu watched the alien fleet begin its approach. The massive facility around him hummed with activity as thousands of personnel coordinated humanity's response. Screens showed the positions of every human ship, every colony, every hidden installation scattered across dozens of star systems. The aliens are moving, reported Colonel Hayes from her position at the tactical display. They're taking the direct route to Earth, just like we expected? Liu smiled grimly. Of course they are. They've never faced an enemy that wanted them to take the direct route, activate all hidden installations. It's time to show them what humans really look like when we're ready for war. The response began slowly, almost invisibly. Across human space, installations that had appeared to be simple mining stations suddenly unfolded like deadly flowers. Solar collectors retracted to reveal massive weapon batteries. Asteroid processing facilities dropped their camouflage to show their true nature as military shipyards. Research stations shed their peaceful facades and became command centers coordinating the movements of hidden fleets on the frontier world of Haven. What the aliens had cataloged as a farming colony, the morning brought a transformation that would have shocked any observer. The farmers put down their tools and picked up weapons. The grain silos opened to reveal missile launchers. The peaceful settlement became a fortress in minutes. Captain Rodriguez received his orders while his ship drifted in the shadow of a small moon. The vessel looked like a cargo hauler, complete with fake registration numbers and a hull that appeared to be held together with hope and spare parts. But when the activation signal came, the disguise fell away. "All hands, battle stations," Rodriguez announced over the ship's intercom. "This is what we've trained for. Remember, we're not just fighting for Earth. We're fighting for every human who's ever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there." His ship, the Hidden Blade, had been designed to look harmless while carrying enough firepower to level a small moon. Around him, a dozen similar vessels revealed their true nature. The aliens had counted 2,000 human ships. They were about to discover there were actually 20,000. The first contact came at the edge of the solar system. A small patrol of alien scouts encountered what they thought was a single human vessel. Captain Rodriguez's ship appeared on their screens as a simple transport, running away from the approaching fleet. "Easy target," the alien commander reported to his superiors. "We'll destroy it and continue the advance." The alien ships moved, and for what they expected to be a quick kill, Rodriguez waited until they were close enough to see the fear in their eyes, then dropped his ship's disguise. The Hidden Blade's true form was sleek and deadly, bristling with weapons the aliens had never seen before. But it wasn't the ship that shocked them. It was the fact that 11 more vessels just like it suddenly appeared around them, emerging from hiding places among the asteroids. "Surprise," Rodriguez said quietly, then opened fire. The alien patrol lasted exactly 18 seconds. Their ships were advanced and well-armed, but they had never faced weapons designed specifically to counter their technology. The humans had studied every alien vessel, every weapon system, every tactical doctrine. They knew exactly where to hit, how to hit it. The destruction of the patrol sent shockwaves through the alien fleet. How had the humans hidden so many ships? How had they known exactly where the patrol would be? Most importantly, how had they made it look so easy? "Impossible," Keth snarled when he received the report. "It was a lucky ambush. Continue the advance." But the ambush kept coming. Small groups of alien ships found themselves facing human vessels that appeared out of nowhere, struck with devastating precision, then vanished before reinforcements could arrive. The humans weren't fighting like primitives. They were fighting like they had been planning this war for generations on Earth. Admiral Torres watched the reports flow in from across human space. Every alien probe was met and destroyed. Every attempt to scout human positions ended in failure. The enemy fleet was advancing blind, stumbling into carefully prepared traps. "Phase 1 complete," reported Lieutenant Davis. "All advanced scouts eliminated. The main fleet is still heading directly for Earth." Torres nodded. "Excellent. Begin Phase 2. Let's show them what happens when they get close to our home." The alien fleet continued its advance, unaware that every movement was being watched and recorded. Hidden sensors tracked their approach. Stealth ships shadowed their formations. The humans knew the exact position of every alien vessel, while the aliens knew almost nothing about human capabilities. As the fleet crossed into the outer solar system, they encountered the first real surprises. What they had thought were unmanned sensor buoys suddenly revealed themselves as automated defense platforms. Mining ships that had been working in the asteroid belt dropped their disguises and opened fire. Even the space stations around Jupiter turned out to be disguised. Military installations. The battle for the solar system had begun, and the aliens were discovering that they had walked into the most carefully prepared trap in galactic history. Every human ship, every installation, every defensive position had been planned and positioned for this exact moment. Keth watched his fleet take casualties from enemies that seemed to appear from nowhere. "How many ships do they really have?" he demanded. His tactical officer's hands shook as he tried to make sense of the sensor readings. "I don't know, sir." They keep appearing where our intelligence said there was nothing. It's like they've been preparing for this specific battle. Impossible, Keth repeated, but doubt was beginning to creep into his voice. No species could hide this level of preparation. We would have detected it. Deep in his command bunker, General Liu smiled as he watched the alien fleet's confusion. They're about to learn something important about humans, he said to his staff. We're very good at keeping secrets. The aliens expected a siege. They had planned to surround Earth and slowly crush human resistance. Instead, they found themselves fighting a war unlike anything in their experience. The humans weren't defending. They were hunting, Colonel Hayes. LED Strike Team 7 through the shadows of space, her ship invisible to alien sensors. The vessel had been designed for one purpose: to penetrate deep into enemy territory and cause maximum damage. Around her, 9 similar ships moved like ghosts, completely undetected by the massive alien fleet. Target confirmed, whispered her weapons officer. Supply convoy, 12 ships, minimal escort. Hayes studied the tactical display. The aliens had to maintain supply lines stretching across half the galaxy. They had never fought an enemy capable of threatening those lines. Every previous conquest had been fought close to the alien homeworlds, where supplies were never a problem. Remember the plan? Hayes told her crew. Hit fast, hit hard, and disappear before they know what happened. We're not trying to win a fair fight. We're trying to make them afraid to leave their bases. The attack came without warning. One moment. The alien supply convoy was traveling peacefully through what they thought was secure space. The next moment, 10 human ships materialized around them like hunting wolves. The escort vessels lasted less than a minute. The supply ships never had a chance to call for help. Hayes watched the alien ships burn, then ordered her fleet to scatter. By the time reinforcements arrived, they would find nothing but wreckage and questions. No witnesses, no clues about where. The attackers had gone, and no way to prevent it from happening again. Similar scenes played out across alien space. Human strike teams appeared wherever the aliens least expected them. Command posts were destroyed in the night. Supply depots vanished in silent explosions. Communication relays went dark without explanation. The aliens began to realize they weren't fighting a defensive war. They were being systematically dismantled by an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Commander Park sat in a room that didn't officially exist, surrounded by screens showing alien communication networks. For years, human cyber warfare specialists had been quietly infiltrating every alien system they could find. They had access to military communications, supply schedules, strategic planning, even personal messages between alien commanders. Their entire 7th Fleet is reporting mechanical failures, Park announced to his team. Weapon systems shutting down randomly, navigation computers giving false readings, life support systems cycling on and off. How long before they figure out it's sabotage? Asked one of his technicians. Park smiled. They already know it's sabotage. What they don't know is how we're doing it or how to stop it. Every time they think they've found our access point, we open 3 more. The cyber attacks were devastating because they were invisible. Alien ships would suddenly find their weapons offline just as human vessels appeared to attack. Navigation systems would send entire fleets to the wrong coordinates, leaving them vulnerable and confused. The aliens had superior technology, but the humans had been inside their systems for years, learning every weakness and preparing every exploit. On the bridge of his flagship, Warlord Keth stared at reports that made no sense. Half his fleet was reporting technical problems. His supply lines were under constant attack. His communication network was unreliable. Worst of all, he was losing ships faster than he was destroying them. How is this possible? He demanded. They're primitives. They should be cowering behind their defenses, begging for mercy. His intelligence officer, a nervous creature from the Valdris species, shifted uncomfortably. Sir, our analysis suggests we may have underestimated human capabilities. Their technology appears more advanced than our initial assessments indicated. More advanced? Keth's forearms gestured angrily. They've been in space for less than 2 centuries. We've been exploring the galaxy for millennia. Yes, sir, but they seem to have spent those 2 centuries preparing for this exact war. Every defense we've encountered has been specifically designed to counter our weapons and tactics. It's as if they knew exactly what we would do before we did it. The truth was even worse than the intelligence officer suspected. The humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared for war. Against the Galactic Council specifically. Every human ship was designed to exploit weaknesses in alien technology. Every tactic was crafted to counter alien strategies. Every weapon was built to penetrate alien defenses. Captain Lee commanded a squadron of vessels that looked like nothing the aliens had ever seen. They were small and fast, with hulls that seemed to bend light around them. The aliens called them ghost ships because they appeared and disappeared without warning, striking where they were least expected. New target confirmed, Lee announced to his squadron. Alien battle group, 20 ships, heading for the Mars defense grid. They think they're going to break through our lines. What's the plan, Captain? Asked his wingman, Lieutenant Stone. Lee studied the alien formation. They were moving in a classic attack pattern designed to overwhelm fixed defenses through sheer firepower. It was a tactic that had worked against every species they had conquered. It would not work against humans. We're going to show them something new, Lee said, something they've never seen before. All ships, prepare for dimensional shift. The human ships seemed to flicker out of existence, then reappear inside the alien formation. The technology was beyond anything the aliens possessed, based on principles they had never discovered. The humans had spent decades developing weapons and tactics that would seem impossible to their enemies. The alien battle group found itself under attack from within its own formation. Human ships moved through space in ways that defied physics, appearing and disappearing at will. The aliens tried to respond, but their targeting systems couldn't lock onto enemies that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. In minutes, the entire alien battle group was destroyed. Not a single human ship took damage. The survivors, who managed to escape, spread word of the impossible attack, adding to the growing fear that was paralyzing the alien fleet. Major Singh crouched in the ruins of what had been an alien command center on a distant moon. His team had infiltrated the base so quietly that the aliens hadn't known they were there until the explosion started. Now the facility was a burning wreck, and Singh's squad was already moving to their next target. That's their third command. Post this week, reported Sergeant Adams as they moved through the shadows. How many more are there? Enough to keep us busy, Singh replied. The aliens built their empire on fear and overwhelming force. They never learned how to fight an enemy that refuses to be afraid. Singh's team represented a new kind of soldier trained for a new kind of war. They moved like shadows, struck like lightning, and vanished like smoke. The aliens had armor that could stop any weapon they knew about. They had sensors that could detect any enemy they had ever faced. But they had never faced humans who had studied them for decades, learning every weakness and preparing every countermeasure. As the third month of the war began, the alien alliance started to fracture. Species that had eagerly joined the attack on humanity were now questioning their decision. The Valdris were the first to break ranks, followed by the Morphic Collective. They had expected to share in the spoils of conquering primitive humans. Instead, they were losing ships and personnel at an alarming rate while gaining nothing. This isn't conquest, complained Ambassador Vorth of the Valdris during an emergency council meeting. This is slaughter, our slaughter. The humans are cheating somehow, insisted General Nexer of the Morphic Forces. No species could have hidden this level of military preparation. They must have received help from someone. But there was no help. There was only humanity, finally showing the galaxy what they were truly capable of when they had time to prepare. The war was turning, and the aliens were beginning to understand that they had made a terrible mistake. The demonstration came without warning. Captain Lee's squadron had been tracking an alien fleet that was trying to regroup near a red giant star. The aliens thought they had found a safe place to repair their ships and plan their next move. They We're wrong. All ships prepare for gravitational manipulation, Lee announced to his squadron. Target the enemy fleet's center of mass. We're going to show them what happens when you understand physics better than your enemy. The human ships moved into position around the alien fleet. To the aliens, it looked like a standard attack formation. They prepared their weapons and shields, ready for another conventional battle. They had no idea what was actually about to happen. Gravitational field generators online, reported Lieutenant Stone. All ships report ready. Execute, Lee ordered. Space itself seemed to bend around the alien fleet. The laws of physics, which the aliens thought they understood, became weapons in human hands. Gravity wells appeared where none should exist. The fabric of reality twisted and warped. The alien ships, caught in forces beyond their comprehension, were pulled inexorably toward a single point. The aliens tried to escape, but their engines were useless against the artificial gravity field. They fired their weapons, but the beams bent and curved in the distorted space. In less than 5 minutes, 50 alien warships were compressed into a sphere barely a kilometer across, their hulls crushed by forces they couldn't understand or counter. The few survivors who witnessed the event spread word throughout the alien fleet. The humans had weapons that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. They weren't just technologically advanced. They were operating on a level of understanding that the aliens couldn't match on the surface of a contested world. Major Singh watched through his scope as an alien patrol approached his position. The enemy soldiers were confident, well-armed, and experienced. They had conquered dozens of worlds using these same tactics. They would not conquer this one. Singh's finger touched his communicator. Around him, his team received the signal. They had been training for this moment for years, learning to fight in ways the aliens had never encountered. The enemy thought. They were hunting a small group of primitive humans. They were about to discover they were the ones being hunted. The attack came from everywhere at once. Singh's soldiers seemed to materialize out of thin air, their camouflage technology making them invisible until they chose to strike. The aliens found themselves under fire from enemies they couldn't see, using weapons that ignored their armor, employing tactics that defied their understanding of warfare. Ghost Squad reporting, Singh whispered into his communicator as the last alien fell. Target eliminated. No casualties on our side. Moving to next objective. Similar reports came in from across the battlefield. Human ground forces were demonstrating abilities that seemed impossible. They moved through solid matter, appeared and disappeared at will, and struck with weapons that the aliens' best armor couldn't stop. Every engagement ended the same way. Complete human victory with minimal losses. The psychological effect was devastating. Alien soldiers who had conquered worlds began to refuse combat missions. Entire units reported sick rather than face human forces. The fear that had always been the aliens' greatest weapon was now working against them. Admiral Torres stood in the command center of Luna Command, watching displays that showed the state of the war across the galaxy. The tide had turned decisively in humanity's favor. Alien fleets were retreating from human space. Their supply lines were in chaos. Their alliance was falling apart. The Vivaldras have officially withdrawn from the alliance, reported Lieutenant Davis. They're requesting a separate peace treaty. The Morphic Collective is expected to follow within days. Torres nodded. What about the others? The smaller species are abandoning their positions and heading home. Only the Drakmori and 3 of their closest allies are still actively fighting. Even they're talking about retreat. Not retreat, Torres corrected. They're about to walk into the final trap. Activate Operation Checkmate. It's time to end this war. Across the galaxy, human fleets that had been hiding for months suddenly revealed themselves. They emerged from nebulae where sensors couldn't detect them. They dropped cloaking fields that had made them invisible. They appeared in systems where the aliens thought no human ships could possibly be. The revelation was staggering. The aliens had thought they were fighting the entire human fleet. In reality, they had been engaging less than a third of humanity's total forces. The rest had been positioned and waiting, preparing for this moment when the alien fleet would be weakened, demoralized, and scattered. Warlord Keth stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at sensor readings that made no sense. Human fleets had appeared in every direction, surrounding what remained of his forces. Ships that shouldn't exist were broadcasting demands for surrender. The primitive species he had come to conquer was dictating terms to him. "How many ships do they have?" he demanded. His tactical officer's voice shook. "Conservative estimate? Over 100,000 combat vessels." "Sir, they've been hiding the majority of their fleet this entire time. We've been fighting a fraction of their total forces." Keth felt something he had never experienced before, complete and utter defeat. His mighty fleet, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was surrounded and outgunned by an enemy he had dismissed as primitive. The humans hadn't just prepared for war, they had prepared for victory. "Incoming transmission from the human fleet," reported his communications officer. The main screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Torres sitting calmly in his command chair. The human looked relaxed, almost friendly, as if he were greeting old friends rather than delivering an ultimatum to a defeated enemy. "Warlord Keth," Torres said politely, "I believe we need to talk. You have two choices. You can surrender now and negotiate reasonable terms, or you can continue fighting and face complete annihilation. I should mention that we have your entire fleet surrounded and your homeworld under observation. Your choice." Keth's forearms trembled with rage and humiliation. "You cannot defeat the Drakmori Empire. We have ruled this galaxy for millennia." "You've bullied this galaxy for millennia," Torres corrected. "There's a difference. You conquered species that were unprepared for war. You used fear and overwhelming force against enemies who panicked when you appeared. But you made one critical mistake. You attacked a species that had been preparing for you specifically." The truth was devastating in its simplicity. The humans hadn't just prepared for war. They had prepared for war against the Galactic Council. Every human strategy, every weapon, every tactic had been designed specifically to counter the alien strengths and exploit their weaknesses. The Council had been fighting an enemy that knew everything about them, while they knew almost nothing about their opponents. "You studied us," Keth said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. "We studied you for decades," Torres confirmed. "We monitored your communications, analyzed your tactics, cataloged your weaknesses. We knew this war was coming long before you declared it. While you were planning conquest, we were planning victory." Around the alien fleet, human ships moved into final positions. There would be no escape, no last-minute reprieve. The Galactic Council's war of conquest had become a trap from which there was no exit. "What are your terms?" Keth asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Torres smiled. "Unconditional surrender, complete withdrawal from human space, reparations for damages. And most importantly, a guarantee that this will never happen again. The galaxy is about to learn a new rule: never attack a species that's been waiting for you to make the first move." The signing ceremony took place aboard the human battleship Invincible, orbiting a neutral world on the edge of what had once been Drakmori space. Warlord Keth stood before a simple table, his forearms trembling as he held the surrender document. Around him, representatives of the species that had followed him into war waited their turn to sign. Admiral Torres watched calmly as each alien leader stepped forward to add their signature to humanity's victory. The document was surprisingly short. It contained no demands for territory, no requirements for tribute, no calls for the dismantling of alien governments. The humans wanted something far more valuable than land or wealth. They wanted assurance that this war would never be repeated. "I don't understand," Keth said as he signed his name to the document. "Why are your terms so lenient? You have the power to enslave us all. Why don't you take our worlds, our resources, our people?" Torres leaned back in his chair. "Because we never wanted an empire, Warlord. We wanted to be left alone to explore space in peace. You forced this war on us. We finished it, that's all." The surrender terms were indeed surprisingly mild. The alien species would pay reparations to cover the cost of human ships and equipment lost in the war. They would withdraw all forces from human space and agree never to return. Most importantly, they would recognize humanity's right to exist as a free and independent species with all the rights and protections that implied. But you could rule the galaxy, insisted General Nexer of the Morphic Collective. Your technology, your tactics, your strategic planning, you've proven you're superior to all of us. Why not take what you've earned? Because ruling a galaxy sounds like a lot of work, Torres replied with a slight smile. We'd rather spend our time exploring new worlds, developing new technologies, and building a better future for our children. You can keep your empires. We just want to be left alone to build our own civilization. The ceremony concluded with the establishment of the new galactic order. Humanity would maintain a permanent peacekeeping force to ensure the treaty was honored. Each alien species would contribute to a joint defense fund, managed by human administrators. Any future conflicts between species would be mediated by human arbitrators. General Yu addressed the gathered representatives after the signing. His words were broadcast across the galaxy, heard by billions of beings who had watched their mighty empires humbled by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Today marks the beginning of a new age, Liu announced. For too long, this galaxy has been ruled by fear, conquest, and the belief that might makes right. Humanity offers a different path. We believe in cooperation, mutual respect, and the idea that every species has the right to determine its own destiny. He paused, letting the words sink in. But make no mistake, the galaxy has seen what happens when that philosophy is threatened. We prepared for this war for generations, and we are prepared to defend the peace for just as long. Any species that chooses the path of conquest will find us ready and waiting. The message was clear. Humanity had not won through luck or superior technology alone. They had won through planning, preparation, and the kind of strategic thinking that looked decades into the future. The galaxy had learned that the quiet species in the outer rim had spent centuries preparing for the war everyone else thought would never come. Ambassador Cross took over the formal proceedings as humanity's new representative to the galactic community. She had been chosen specifically for her diplomatic skills, but everyone in the room knew that her words carried the full weight of human military power behind them. The new Galactic Council will convene on Terra Station in neutral space, Cross announced. All species will have equal representation, regardless of size or military power. Decisions will be made through negotiation and consensus, not through threat and intimidation. The irony was not lost on the alien representatives. The species they had tried to conquer was now offering them protection and equal representation. The humans were establishing exactly the kind of galactic community that the old council had claimed to represent, but had never actually created. What about trade rights? Asked Ambassador Vorth of the Valdris, the first species to break from the alliance. Our economies depend on access to resources throughout the galaxy. Trade will be free and open to all species, Cross replied. But it will be regulated to ensure fairness and prevent exploitation. No more economic warfare. No more using trade as a weapon. Commerce will serve all species, not just the strongest. The new rules were revolutionary. For the first time in galactic history, smaller species would have the same access to resources and markets as the great empires. The humans were using their victory not to replace the old system of oppression, but to eliminate it entirely. As the formal ceremonies concluded, the alien representatives found themselves in an unprecedented situation. They had expected conquest, slavery, or at best punitive occupation. Instead, they were being offered partnership in a system that promised to be fairer than anything that had existed before. Why? Kef asked Torres privately after the other. Delegates had departed. Why are you doing this? Why not take revenge for what we tried to do to your species? Torres considered the question carefully. Because revenge would make us like you. And we spent too many years preparing to be better than that. The truth was more complex than Torres let on. Humanity's leaders had spent decades studying not just alien military capabilities, but alien psychology and history. They understood that empires built on conquest inevitably collapsed, leaving chaos and suffering in their wake. The humans wanted something more permanent, more stable. "We learned from your mistakes," Torres continued. "Every empire you built was held together by fear. When that fear disappeared, the empire collapsed. We're building something different. A system based on mutual benefit rather than mutual terror." 6 months after the surrender, the new galactic order was already taking shape. Terra Station, built in neutral space between human and alien territories, had become the center of galactic government. Representatives from 47 species worked together to solve problems that had plagued the galaxy for millennia. The changes were remarkable. Trade disputes that would once have led to war were now resolved through negotiation. Territorial conflicts were mediated by neutral arbitrators. Scientific discoveries were shared freely between species, leading to advances. That benefited everyone, but the most significant change was in how the galaxy species saw themselves and each other. The humans had proven that military superiority didn't have to lead to domination. They had shown that it was possible to win a war and then help the defeated enemies rebuild and prosper. "The humans have done something unprecedented," observed Dr. Kellen, a Valdres historian, in a report that would become famous throughout the galaxy. "They have broken the cycle of conquest and revenge that has defined galactic politics for millennia. For the first time in recorded history, the strongest military power is using its strength to protect the weak rather than exploit them." The human military remained vigilant, but their role had changed. Instead of preparing for conquest, they were preparing for defense. Human fleets patrolled the galaxy's trade routes, protecting merchant vessels from pirates. Human peacekeepers mediated disputes between species. Human scientists shared their advanced technology with former enemies. "We're not rulers," General Liu explained to a gathering of military officers from across the galaxy. "We're guardians. Our job is to make sure that no species ever again faces the choice between submission and extinction." The transformation wasn't without challenges. Some alien factions resented human authority and plotted rebellion. A few species tried to resume their old patterns of conquest, only to find human forces waiting to stop them. But gradually, the new system proved its worth. Years passed, and the galaxy began to prosper in ways it never had before. Trade flourished under human protection. Scientific advancement accelerated through cooperation. Conflicts were resolved through dialogue rather than warfare. The fear that had dominated galactic politics for centuries gradually gave way to something unprecedented. Hope, Warlord Keth, now serving as a junior representative in the new Galactic Council, often reflected on the war that had changed everything. He had been stripped of his military command but allowed to serve in a civilian capacity, helping to implement the new order he had once fought against. "I understand now," he said during a private conversation with Ambassador Cross. "We thought strength meant the ability to destroy. You showed us that true strength is the ability to build. We conquered through fear, you conquered through preparation. But then you chose to heal rather than harm. That's something we never learned how to do," Cross nodded thoughtfully. "Fear is a powerful weapon, but it's also a limited one. Eventually, people stop being afraid and start being angry. Cooperation is harder to achieve, but it lasts longer." As the 10th anniversary of the war approached, humanity's role in the galaxy had stabilized into something unprecedented in galactic history. They were the strongest military power, but they used that strength to maintain peace rather than expand territory. They possessed the most advanced technology, but they shared it freely with other species. They had won the greatest victory in recorded history, but they had used it to create a system where such victories would no longer be necessary. The final irony was not lost on galactic historians. The species that had been attacked for being too violent and chaotic had created the most peaceful and stable government the galaxy had ever known. Humanity had prepared for war so thoroughly that they had made war itself obsolete. "Admiral Torres?" now in his 70s, stood on the observation deck of Terra Station, watching ships from dozens of species dock peacefully at the massive structure. Children from across the galaxy played together in the station's parks. Scientists from former enemy species worked side by side in the research labs. Former warriors had become diplomats, traders, and teachers. Was it worth it? Asked his aide, a young officer who had been born after the war ended. Torres smiled as he watched a group of human and alien children chase each other through the station's corridors, their laughter echoing off the walls. "We prepared for the war to end all wars," he said quietly. "Looks like we succeeded." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had been ready for war, but more importantly, they had been ready for peace. And in the end, that made all the difference.